Let me talk for 1 minute longer about my background because there might be more conversations or questions that come after that. So I'm from Colombia, South America. Just so you know, if you don't know where Colombia is, that's why my accent is so thick. If you don't understand something that I'm trying to say, please immediately let me know. I don't feel offended. Yes, I want to communicate well, but let me know. Sometimes my accent is not as good. Anyways, I did my undergrad in Colombia, and in there I met my former professor James Ackley. It was like just a semester with him, but it was so good that I wanted to continue with him. And so I came to the States after him when he came. So I studied there in South Carolina with him. It was lucky enough, as Dr. Stoneback mentioned, that Ali Misuti was one visiting instructor for 2 years while I was doing my master's. So I got to study with Bisuti too. And then I moved to Arizona I studied with Big Hickman, and I was very lucky to get a scholarship or assistantship rather, helping in the mariachi. So that's something that I do well also, not really as a mariachi player, but as a mariachi, I would say instructor or I think you gotta be really into that kind of music to be a professional mariachi player. But anyways, that's my background. Because of that, I got a job that required to teach mariachi and trumpet. So I got kind of lucky that I got through all of those requirements for getting that job that was in Texas A&M International University. And I spent there for years, and now I'm here just teaching trumpet. Anyways, that's a little background to let you know what I have done. Uh, I have never had like problems with body posture or body tension or nervousness. I have been always like, play what you need. It's probably not perfect, but relaxed in a good way. Except like when I was doing my masters, I started feeling so tense all of an, out of nowhere, like feeling tense and even nervous. Sometimes to the point of even almost shaking in important solos. Like when I was so exposed in important solos coming, I was like, what's going on? I have never had this problem. Why all of a sudden I'm having this problem? So I got very, very lucky that I got into a class of Alexander Technique that was offered while I was doing my master's. And this instructor was really, really great. Still is really, really great. And she made me play and look, it started like, do this, do that, stand like this, stand like that. And then she was like, I think you have tension right here. And then I touched myself, and that was hard, like really hard. And I didn't notice. If she didn't point out, I didn't notice. And I realized that I was doing. Um, we probably don't pay too much attention to that, but the shoulder was just a little high, just a little bit. It's just like this, and it just it's not even an inch, like a centimeter, maybe less. But it was like that all the time. For some reason, we discovered through Alexander technique that that little extra degree angle was causing this muscle right here. It's called a trapezium. It was causing it to be tense little by little, and 10 minutes not a problem, but 20 minutes playing there, then one full rehearsal, and I was dying, and that was actually causing trouble somehow, I believe, like with the nervous system, because it was making me scared without even realizing it was because of that. And I solved that, and immediately it's like magic. I got no nervousness anymore. Yeah, at least not because of not as bad, Well, that will I think there will always be some nervousness. I think that's good actually, but it wasn't that bad that it will impede the way I would play. So I started to do a little more research about Alexander technique, about other things. That's what I want to share with you. So let me share the screen right here. If there are any questions in any moment, please let me know. Can you see this? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So, as I mentioned, the first thing that I would recommend is be aware of your body. Be aware of what is doing at all times. We are always focused on, the notes. We have to play this passage, and we focus on that and the fingers and the interval. But we like almost never pay attention what is the body doing, and it's so important. So, is your is your tension in the neck, or you don't have any tension, or is in the back, is in the lower back, or is in a shoulder, like it was my case, or even the wrist. I mean, you gotta be aware at all times of what's going on with your body. I think that's the first step to play a little easier, I would say. So I realized that most people that were in the Alexander technique with me, the Alexander technique class, I'm going to talk later in a second what exactly is Alexander technique, but let me just mention it for now. Most of the people in that class had tension either in their arms, shoulders, and neck, or neck. You know, it was always in that area with everything started, and it was not for trumpet players; it was for every musician. So flutes tend to, tend to do something with the head, something. Violins also tend to do something with the neck. You know, we as trumpet or brass players even we tend to, damage the angle of the head, I believe. So let me talk more about balance. So the first thing that I realized in Alexander technique is that there are some points that you see in this diagram that where if they align these points, if these points align, you get more chances of being in a, I would call it like a relaxed, alert way of state, because if you say relax, people usually just, just melt on the chair or just lounge, and that's the extreme. I think that's not healthy either. So I wouldn't say being relaxed. I would say being balanced. Having these points right here is very important. I believe as trumpet players, it's very frequent to find number one a little ahead of number two. Like, can you see my cursor? Like right here, like this kind of thing. That's very frequent. Or number three or four, a little ahead, like around here. It's very frequent. Um, I'm coming from a Latin word, and I don't see why it's very frequent to find mariachi players with the belly kind of prominent, and not only for because the belly, but they stand like this a little bit. And it happens a lot also in marching band, I have noticed. So we're going to talk about that in a second. Anyways, the appropriate head balance is so important, like balance in relationship of the rest of the body. One common mistake that I have noticed we do is that the head goes to the instrument. So we kind of do, look at my head angle, we kind of tend to do this. I'm probably overdoing it a little bit, so you notice what I'm doing, but even a little bit is not good. Just let the instrument come to you all the way, right? So if this is your balanced body right here, um, you don't need to do anything else. It just comes. Don't do that. Don't do this, and even less, don't go for it. Don't go for it. I don't know how many of you are in music education. Is there a good percentage of you that are in the music and education track? Because I think it's important to to pay attention to that. Like in euphoniums, I see it a lot here. Like they hold the euphonium and they just go for it, right? Even to us. So keep your head in a good balanced position. That thing that they say that you are taller when you are in a good posture is not a metaphor. It's not abstract. It's like literally you get a little taller when you are a little more aligned. So just like it says or shows in this picture, like everything gets a little compressed when you are not aligned. So just pay attention to how you hold the instrument, how it runs to you. The muscles in the neck should not be tense, should not be tightened, especially for us, of course, because we tongue. The tongue is way longer than we think. Tongue is super long; it goes all the way down there. So if this is tense, it starts creating problems with that muscle. Um, and when the neck is free on tension, only can the tongue and the TMJ relax. The TMJ is the short, it stands for temporomandibular joint. It's basically this joint right here where the jaw meets the cranium. So right here, yeah, and we can talk more about that, but I don't want to get too long. But there are several different methods of playing, I guess. Our former professor, Dr. Stoneback, our former professor David Hickman, he called it floating jaw when the jaw is not basically in the socket. So it's like a little bit. I'm overdoing it, right? I'm overdoing it, so you know what I mean. But even a little bit would be floating jaw. Some people play like that, and the other option will be fixed jaw. So it's in the socket, right? So some people actually might have a combination of both. Like uh, play certain register in floating and certain register. Usually in the low register is more floating. It changes and depending on the player. I'm not gonna go into many details about that, but just know that everything here, free of tension, will help for whatever technique you use. Um, and of course, as I was mentioning, in my case, this was getting tension all the way in the back. And the same happened with anything here in the neck. Like, believe it or not, everything is connected. So avoid also collapsing the back, as in the picture. It's not only getting the belly out, but also collapsing the back. It could happen. Um, I don't know why with some people who have maybe visual problems, they tend to lean into the music stand a little too much. They end up playing like this for a little too long, I would say. So I think that's important. Yeah, you have this awesome friend. He's an amazing trumpet player from Colombia. He passed a couple of months ago. But he was always what we call in Spanish cegaton. Like he can see everything. So he was always like leaning to stand like this and the head even like kind of tilted. That's not healthy. You need to do whatever you need to do. Go to the optometrist or get, set up your stand to be closer. I don't know, but take care of the body. In the right picture right here, it shows, of course, we always hear not to lock the knees, right? But this picture doesn't depict really what I mean with locking, because the not locked picture of the knee, is just so subtle that you don't need to overdo it. It's just a tiny bit that maybe you are the only one who feels that you're not locking it, but that's enough. So in other words, it doesn't have to be locked all the way. The only fact of being tense especially in the thighs, I believe, is not as good. Did I explain myself? So, getting ahead with that, we have a misconception that the spine. I think I missed one here. Yeah, let's go to this one. This is from our former professor David Hickman's book, The Trumpet Pedagogy, which I strongly recommend. Avoid this kind of thing also, going to the holding the trumpet is very frequent. It's not good for the tendons here because, you know, potentially it could cause carpal tunnel or tendonitis. So it's not as frequent in trumpets, but don't push your luck because there have been cases, So I recommend to have a space right here a little gap right here in between the hand and the casing of the trumpet. So I think that space is very important. Some people just get the palm of the hand all the way there, and then that causes this curvature right here. You know what I mean? So how do we hold it? I think is very important too. Not only to avoid problems there, but because of the pressure against the lips, changes. I believe changes the way you hold the trumpet. So just to make an experiment, if you hold it a little upward in the center of gravity, all the pressure will come to the top lip. It's like if I do this kind of thing, backwards. So all the pressure goes to the top. I don't know if you have tried, but try to play a few notes like that. If you are muted, try right there if you have the horn. And it's so awkward. It's very difficult. So most of the pressure should come to the bottom in most players. I wouldn't generalize, but in general, I said didn't generalize, but in general, in general, most players vibrate most the top lip. So I have seen some people that make the analogy that the lips are like the double reed, because you have two lips, is double reed like an oboe or bassoon. But I believe it's mostly like a clarinet or saxophone, where the bottom lip is the black mouthpiece, and the one that vibrates the most, the reed, is actually the top. And if you don't believe me, now that you're muted right there, do this exercise with me, like a little buzzing, and then roll your finger or a pencil, roll it until don't cover the aperture, but touch the red lip. If you don't cover the aperture, you touch the red lip, but it might modify the vibration a little bit or sound, but in most cases, still sound something, right? If you do it on the top, though, in most cases, it just stops. It just stops because you're doing pressure where you shouldn't. So that's why it's important to hold it in a proper way. If you see uh, high register players, look at pictures, Google it right now if you want. Um, on the side right there. I don't know, Maynard Ferguson, Artur Sandoval, like high register guys, even John Faddis, I don't know, those monsters that play so awesome in the high register. Most of them don't have this hold. That's mostly a classical hold because I believe because the pressure is kind of a little more even out. When you need to play so high and loud, the pressure goes mostly like this towards the bottom lip. You know what I mean? So some even got like this, like a gun, or at least one finger or two down there. It's because the pressure goes more in the bottom. Maybe they do it on purpose, maybe not. I don't know, but I believe that's the reason why. And this lip is usually thicker for all of us, so it kind of endures a little bit more pressure than the top lip. So very important how we hold the instrument. So misconceptions. The spine is not straight. It's not rigid. It has some curvature in there. I think some people think to take that being in balance is being super straight, and that's why I try to avoid the term like be straight or sit up straight. Yes, when you are lounge, that's the opposite, so that's good, but it's not rigid. Like it's very flexible. Um, I once went in a class with someone. I was asked to play against the wall and to have the head all the way touching the wall, as well as the shoulder plates and the lower back, but everything. And that's so incredibly unnatural, I believe, because we are not like that. So pay attention to that. Now, again, like depends on the case. Like for example, one trumpet player that I admire like a lot is Adam Rappa, and he talks about the Superman posture. But I believe it's great to open all these muscles and to breathe well and to not to collapse. But be aware that having the head a little more forward than the back, as it shows in this picture, is totally natural. So I'm not talking about the chest. I'm talking about the angle of the head. Okay. Other misconceptions. I believe people think the lungs are a little lower than they actually are. So the lungs are right here above the diaphragm. And by the way, the diaphragm is an involuntary muscle. So I'm not opposed to visual like instruction. I believe I would call it like if someone say breathe from the diaphragm. I don't think it's a bad thing to imagine it. To imagine it's coming, but to be technical, we don't have control of the diaphragm. It's like if I say move your ear like this, like Alf. I don't know. You're too young to remember Alf. But if I say move your ear, I think we can. Maybe you move this muscle right here, and the ear kind of goes with it a little bit up and down like this. But it's not really like a dog. The same happens with the diaphragm. If they tell you breathe from the diaphragm, they probably want you to do a visual image of getting the air all the way through, right? But you don't really control how that moves. The diaphragm is this muscle right here, like in a dome shape, and above it is the lungs, and below it is the abdominal cavity, so the stomach and everything. So lots of people think we fill the stomach with air, and technically we could, but it's all that is digestion stuff. Don't use that to breathe. If you see that the stomach goes a little bigger and outward when you breathe, it's normal because the lungs get full, push the diaphragm, so the diaphragm pushes the abdominal cavity outwards a little bit, but not really because you fill everything with air down there. And even if you can manage to get a little bit of air in the stomach, so look how big the stomach is. I mean, it's not as big. You don't really, I don't think you should use the stomach to play that much. And I'm saying literally the stomach, because in some techniques, I have heard some people actually get involved with the muscles down here. And I believe, depending on the technique, if you are well guided, that might be okay. That might be okay. They're getting, for example, with Professor Ackley, we always said to play a little louder and higher. So this goes inward and high, like, you know, getting involved from there. I think that's perfectly fine, even necessary sometimes, depending on the technique you're following. But it's not really the air going down there. I think it's good to have that clear. The air goes in the lungs, and it's a little higher than you think. The way we see it, if there's any questions any moment, please stop me, no problem. But the way you see it, I think is so important. We usually just don't sit in a correct way, and the weight should be right here in these blue painted bones, which is called the rockers or sitting bones, the bottom of the pelvis. And if you, for example, right there in your seat, kind of sit more or less when you think it's balanced. But if you cross the legs behind the chair, if you notice, you pay attention, maybe the weight starts to be a little bit on the thighs. So it's not really all the weight on the rockers, Or if you use the recliner, I think it's fine as long as the weight is going still down there. But if you do it too much, part of the weight start probably going here in the coccyx, in the pelvis bone a little higher. So experiment with that a little bit, and you will notice that it changes. It changes a lot. Why do I think that's important? Because I believe the muscles around here, as I mentioned a moment ago, could get involved in playing, but they will get, I'm talking about the dorsal and the abdominal area. All those muscles around could get a little bit involved here and there in some playing, especially loud playing, like high. Yeah, it's trumpet, it's not a recorder. But if you are not sitting well, I think you increase the risk of doing something over or doing it wrong. Like, like when you're going to the bathroom, kind of, I don't know. Is don't give the chance to the body to do what is not needed. So if you just focus on how you are sitting, how the weight is distributed, so it's more likely that the body, without just thinking too much on it, is just doing the things right. And choose the chair wisely. When you get a chair that the recliner is too inclined, maybe it doesn't help, just don't use the recliner. I like to use the recliner, to be honest, but I'm always paying attention that the weight is actually in the rockers. And the way you stand, of course, is also very important, because I think some people think the way it goes like a little more towards the back of the heel or even towards the center. Just be sure where the weight is going right there, because I see these like one of those, have you seen those lamps that have 3 legs, but one of the legs is shorter? It's just like that. And if you see those, the stick of the lamp, the bulb is right here. The stick of the lamp, if one of the legs is shorter, the stick of the lamp is likely not to be straight. It's likely to be a little inclined towards the longer legs. Do I explain myself? So that's very, very important, because we are like that. That one was one of the realizations, I guess, in a standard technique, that I was playing too straight, and this instructor was like, I think your tense right here, like look for the balance a little forward, a little forward, a little forward. And it's like feeling, if you are well guided, you feel like a click, like, oh, I feel way more light right here. And at the beginning, I felt like I was forward, but not really. I was just in balance, but it's probably a little more forward than you think. Something that I noticed, I'm skipping this. Something that I noticed in in America, basically, is marching bands. We don't have this as the way you have it, at least in my times. I think today is different, but when I came to America, we didn't have marching bands in Colombia. And then I saw some freshmen rather frequently, even not in marching band setting, playing like this. And I go, why is he playing like that? And we were very, very lucky that our professor there in South Carolina was James Ackley, and I think he's awesome to fix you up. And so between a few weeks, everyone was playing a little better. But when they come from high school, if you are going to be an educator, playing like this becomes rather frequent for Americans, I have noticed. And I believe it's because they get used to playing marching band like that. And that's very important, because the way you march can again affect the way the pressure goes in the lips, right? Because you either They tell you, I guess, right? I haven't played marching band, but I guess they tell you lift the trumpet, right? So you either lift it and all the pressure goes to the top, or you lift everything and then your neck is all bent, like the picture. So be very aware of that. Um, because as I mentioned, the lip that vibrates the most at the top, and most people have this kind of bite, an overbite, right? Um, so even more dangerous that you tilt the trumpet upwards, and if you don't do anything and keep doing, let's suppose, as I said before, keep doing fixed jaw. So if you lift the trumpet only, the head doesn't move, your bite is like this. So all the pressure is basically in the top. You're killing the vibrating reed, like literally. So that's why people complain like, oh, my endurance, oh, I'm so tired, oh, the register. Well, the register and endurance, I think, go together, and then you're killing your vibration. So
So,
careful.
Dr. Zapata, I want to just break here really briefly. So, a lot of our trumpeters, are in the marching band, and they're very frequently, told it's like that the concept of playing to the box, right? In your perspective, how can they continue to be balanced and not, kill the buzz, so to speak, and still satisfy that the horn angle that is, as
Yeah.
expected?
You know, I'm trying to do a little bit of research about that, but I foresee lots of controversial opinions from band directors, and that's a great question because that's my next slide right here. Like, what would you do? What would you do? How do you help to play more in balance? So this might be, again, I'm still kind of researching this to see if it helps, but in consultation with one director, because you don't want to piss your band director off, but in consultation with your teacher, in this case with Dr. Stoneback, maybe a floating approach might help if that's applicable to you. So just the fact of having the floating approach a tiny bit changes a lot of angle in the bell down there, because everything I do right here, 1 degree might represent, like, I don't know, I'm making this up, but 1 degree here might represent like 10 degrees right here in the bell. You know what I mean? So maybe the floating approach might help a little bit in some cases. Something that I like to do to check if I'm if or at least works for me and my students, if I can do flooring job, if this with my mouthpiece, play from a top G more or less, go all the way down to low G, down 2 octaves, and as loud as possible and loud. So from top G, pass through the middle, all the way down to low G, more or less. And in my case, do it several times with fixed jaw. So this is in the socket, all the way through, flooring jaw, all the way through. Maybe try fix and go gradually low for flooring. And in my case, that's the one that works best. And just let the sound tell you what's easier, what sounds best. If it's all the way good to fix jaw, why do you fix something that is not broken, right? If it's better in flooring, I didn't know I have to do this, or I could do this. So maybe it's an option. If you try flooring, it sounds really bad, it's very, very uncomfortable, so it's not for you. That's okay. So, and a combination of both might work. Another option, mouthpiece bent at the neck of the shank. I have seen this even in not marching people, like James Ackley, my former professor from University of South Carolina. For me, he's an outstanding player. He's so good, and he plays with a bent mouthpiece. So again, 1 degree here changed a lot right there. So maybe you have to do this a little bit for marching band, but with the bent neck in the mouthpiece right here, that's already there. So maybe that helps a lot, right? And in that case, I don't think it's a big deal you don't probably have to consult with your instructor or your band director, because they will probably don't care about this particular case. Maybe consult with your trumpet professor, because that's a little more hours, right? So that's an option. And the band trumpet, I put this picture in there because I just to illustrate. But when I thought about band trumpet to march, again, this one is the one that you got must consult with the band director because they might not like if you play with a different kind of trumpet, right? But if they're okay with that, is even if it's a slight bend on the bell, I think it's perfectly fine, on the bell. This particular picture, I'm not really sure because to be honest, I'm very hesitant to try a bent lead pipe. I don't think that's a good idea, to be honest. So I put it there as an example kind of thing. But the bend on the bell, for sure, I think that's fine. I have tried bent trumpets in the bell, and it's perfectly fine. So if the band director is okay, a slight bend might help also. So maybe you could do a bent mouthpiece with a slightly bent bell, and that might solve all the problem, right? Might. So it depends on the case. Again, depends on the band director, consult with your instructor, but these might be possibilities. But even if you can't solve the problem while you're marching, be aware that don't bring that to concert band, to wind ensemble, to your practice, to anything, because that's what I saw in South Carolina. Like the first studio meetings, people were playing like this, and it was this not marching band. And to be honest, at that point, I haven't even seen a marching band live. And then, like a couple of weeks later, I saw a marching band. It was pretty awesome band they have in there in South Carolina, the Gamecocks. Um, it was super cool. But then I noticed, aha, that's why these kids play like that. Because everyone was playing like this, you know?
Something you had just said reminded me of something that David Hickman always would talk about, and I'm curious to see if he mentioned this in different lessons through the years. He'd always say, like, you put a different trumpet up to your mouth, or you're going to do something, you put that different hat on, you turn that switch in the brain. And very similar to, like, I'm on the marching band field, this is how this is, and come into the concert band, this is how this is. So you're constantly just putting different hats on, and you're being, different characters that require, different, maybe different approaches.
Yes, absolutely. And he used exactly the same term with me. They're using different hats
Yeah.
because I was doing at the same time as doing my doctorate. I was conducting mariachi, which I was basically conducting and not playing that much, but I was still playing it. So I literally had a different hat, and he told me, like, for this, I know you do these particularities, regarding articulations and vibrato. It's different in those things, but in here, different hat.
Yeah,
It's not mariachi anymore. So use the same approach. If you
that's
have to do
great.
marching band, you do what you can do to
Hmm.
fix and do better. But even if some things are so different, don't bring it to the studio, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Or
that's
bring
great.
only what is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent.
Anyways, avoid this, of course. Yeah, there's this the other problem, bending the backwards just to leave the trumpet. Again, if you have to, you do what you need to do. But I hope it doesn't become a must for you to play. That's the point. So the things that I think will help you also just to be aware of the bodies. As I mentioned, Alexander technique. So what is Alexander technique? I mentioned already like 5 times that word. So Alexander technique is basically educational process or method that this actor, his name was Frederick Matthias Alexander, he came out with this idea of being more aware of the body because according to what I read and studied, he was having problems projecting the voice as an actor. He was just in the play and trying to say this and couldn't be heard. Like, oh, what do I do? I can project the voice. He's starting to figure out, what do I do? So, okay, maybe I'm tense here. Oh, this is better. Oh, this is better. And starting to research. It was so successful that singers started to see him just to project the voice better. And then that was so successful that all musicians started to look for him. Like, how can your body be better? So that's Alexander technique. Body mapping is linked to that. Is a couple of Alexander technique teachers. There are a couple. Is William and Barbara Conable. I believe that's their name. William Barbara Conable. They research and these books about body mapping. It's basically um, knowing where things are connected in the body. So you do a lot of coloring. So for example, you color this muscle and then goes behind this other and this other, and you realize, oh, this muscle here goes all the way back. It's just internal kind of thing. So when you see a picture of the muscles, Google or whatever, it's usually what you see, like just getting out of the skin. But behind those muscles, there are more muscles that are connected like in a string kind of thing. So and the same happening with nerves, and the skeletal, everything. So that's body mapping. Yoga, of course, you know what yoga is, but there are different kind of yoga. The most common, I believe, is called hatha yoga. And the one I love for musicians, if you can have the chance to do, is called pranayama yoga because it focuses on breathing. So it's really good. It's pranayama. So you do some exercise here and there and breathing through the nose, expel through the mouth, whatever. So it helps a lot. To be honest with you, I have done yoga like, well, I stopped doing it because with this job, it just gets so crazy. There's no time. But when I did it like with like for several years, like for four different instructors. And to be honest, with a couple of them, I love it. With a couple of them, I hated it. So it depends on who you get. And also, I think there is a misconception in America that yoga is for all ladies. And trust me, that's not the situation. No, yoga is good. And the other reason why I love yoga is because you can focus on yourself. Like in yoga, you're not looking like, oh, look how flexible that guy is. Oh, that's good. Or, oh, that other one is so tense. Look, he can barely touch the knees. No, 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 no. You don't do that in yoga. In yoga, you're just focusing on yourself. You don't care about them. You don't care about those. And you're just measuring yourself with your progress, your own. And I think that's what we should do in trumpet. Because we're always looking outside, like, I think it's good to look at references and, admire people. And I say do it all the time, but don't compare yourself to others because I think that's when it's not fun to play, you know. And Tai Chi is a Chinese martial art, but it's generally done really slowly. So you're just focusing on breathing and on the movements. You have seen people doing it in a park or something. You just focus on the breathing and do the movements. I did it for a while, and that helps also. If you do it in a relaxed way, it just helps the body to be in a nice, relaxed, alert kind of state. Other things that could help, you know, to be honest with you, if I'm very, very lucky today, you might remember about body posture in the next practice session, and then tomorrow you forget. And wait, what? And you don't pay attention to that anymore. But if you just get in the habit of the first 5 minutes of practice, just focus on that. Then you focus on the notes, intervals, whatever, anything you need to do. But just the first 5 minutes. How are you standing? How are you sitting? How are you holding it? Just first few minutes, focusing on that. You start the first few notes or your warm up, focus on that. Focus on, okay, the weight here. And then you forget about that, and that's okay. But the next day, hopefully, the first 5 minutes. That's the first 2 minutes rule. Practice in front of a mirror. You, of course, will realize, oh, I didn't know I was playing like this. Like, so, I think that's important and easy. Walk slowly and say very slowly. I mean very slowly as you play easy, and I mean easy musical lines. Don't run and try to play Tomasi. Walk slowly and play a few musical lines because walking help the muscles to be just relaxed. You don't have that tension anymore. So you guys can march. So I'm pretty sure you can walk slowly and play something easy. So easy. So a few things to consider, just to close this. Avoid the word posture, as I mentioned, especially working with young students. Lots of you will be into education. So when you say like, like sit straight, they usually, oh, and if you say relax, they just, and they start, literally, the kids start just playing flat when you say relax. Why? As I mentioned a couple of times already, being in a relaxed but alert way. And the words you use are very important to achieve that. So avoid posture, maybe look for words like balance or alignment instead. And avoid relax, that leaks for collapse. So examples of good words, play comfortable, play balance, freedom, elegant, with more motion if he's tense. Depends on the situation, but avoid those others. Anyways, that's what I had. It has worked for me a lot. I know you have had great guests that always focus on the tone and sound development, how to practice. And I have followed you guys in Facebook, and I love it. It's so great. So I thought they have great artists. I'm going to talk about something different. I decided to share this, and I hope it's well received.
Oh, this is excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Zapata. These are just really great things to think about. And I love how you say, be attentive to the first 5 minutes, you know? And if you're attentive to that every day, you know, all those add up. And then pretty soon you start becoming more naturally feeling more free and having, and I love those words, graceful, strong, and just and those are just so those evoke such a vivid feeling and picture in your mind as well. So I'm curious, what questions do people have? What are you unsure about? Some of this might be new to you. Some of this might be something that you try to do all, you know, already, or what spoke to you? What are you unsure about?
I have a question. We a lot of times in trumpet, we talk about how your fingers should be on the valve, and it's like, I think a lot of that debate is sort of whether the curve that I think a lot of us are taught as sort of the pedagogical way to use the valves, but of course a lot of us will go to the flat fingers to play. I'm just curious if you could comment on what your view on that is.
Yes, thank you for the question, Tristan. So I definitely am a strong advocate to have the fingers slightly bent. Avoid this if at all possible. And the space between the trumpet and the fingers is crucial. That some people touch this, the lead pipe right here, and that's when it can start getting flat, because this becomes this unnatural curve. And the same here, as I mentioned, this gap right here, I think is crucial, not only for the pressure against the lips, but to be able to maneuver these two nicely. This finger is also important, the thumb, because some people just grab the trumpet from here, and if you have this is blurry sometimes, you see. If you have the finger there, the thumb, so they might impede, depending on your trumpet, might impede the first slide. This, yes, it's right here. So depending on your trumpet, then cause problems. So I suggest to put it right here between the second. For me, in other words, that the way that the trumpet goes right there, one hand, right there. That's the way the trumpet, just those two fingers. And I don't actually use this one. I call it, to be honest with the students, I call it a page turner, right? Because I'm playing, the finger is not there, gonna turn page, hold it, go, keep going. So that's the page turner, because that people tend to, that's the saxophone octave key. I would call it instead the top lip killing key. So don't use it, only page turn, right? And that's keep going. Now, if you use it, not a big deal, but make sure it's relaxed right there. It's not a hook. The way you hold it is so important. Thank you for that question. That clarify more or less?
We have I wish we had a little more time, but I want to encourage everybody, if you have a question, I'm going to CC Dr. Zapata to this presentation, the YouTube link that will be available for you to look back on. And if you have any questions, reach out to him and connect and ask him. And so we're going to have to call it today, but before we call it, I'd love to get a picture with everybody. So if you're comfortable, feel free to turn your screen on. If not, that's okay. But yeah, let's get a picture together. All right, ready? One. I'll wait till some of the screens are turned on. There you go. 2, 3. Dr. Zapata, thank you so much for sharing today. We
Thank you.
sure appreciate you. Thank
very
you.
honored. Thank you for coming.
Gracias.
De nada.
Cool. Well, everybody, I'll keep you posted for the next one. We have one more of the semester, and thanks for being a part of the trumpet community. For those who are not in the MSU Trumpet Studio, we consider you a part of our team, so thank you. Hope you all have a great day.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Zapata.
De nada.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good Spanish over there.
Yeah. See.
Thank you.
That's good. I love the choir then.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
It's always nice to see everybody grouping together too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, very
Yeah.
nice. You have a great studio over there.
Yeah. Oh, they're awesome.
Yeah, I can tell. Awesome. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Wagner, thanks for making it today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm from Brazil,
Oh,
Zapata.
you're from Brazil.
Yes.
Excellent. Very nice. Very nice. I'm playing a Brazilian piece in my next recital.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Which one? What is it called? Who is it by?
It's the Concertino #1 by Gilson Santos.
Yes. Yes. He's my friend. I'm gonna play